to talk about that?
Patriots.
My head is about to fly off my shoulders and flip around the room and blow up on the set because you're talking about people who beat up cops. My father was a cop in the military. My favorite uncle, Milton, just retired from Memphis City Police Force. I'm a law enforcement kid. I can put up with a lot of stuff. Beating up cops is not one of them, period. And so you're now saying that these are patriots who deserve reparations. The cops that got beat up might deserve reparations. The lawmakers who got scared half to death might deserve reparations. I don't know, African Americans have been mistreated for 40 years, might at least get a study on reparations. But this is an insult to anybody who believes in law and order.
Donald Trump told Greg Kelly on Newsmax that people in his circle are talking about creating a compensation fund for January 6th rioters, because in his view, they are patriots who were treated unfairly. Consumer confidence had just hit its lowest point since early 2021. Working Americans were struggling with grocery prices, housing costs, and tariff anxiety. And the president was musing about paying the people who beat police officers on camera. Bakari Sellers connected the reparations dots in a way that deserves to be heard in full. Let's get into it.
You either have it or you don't. And Americans right now, they don't seem to have it about the economy. Consumer confidence slipped again this month to its lowest level since January 2021. That was in the middle of a COVID pandemic winter. The short-term outlook for businesses is at a 12-year nadir. The president, though, says that he's kind of looking at everything through rose-colored glasses. Listen to what he said about after the February jobs report.
We're going to talk about how good some of these numbers are, be way ahead of schedule. These are private sector manufacturing jobs. So we gained all of those jobs, 10,000 jobs, and we barely started yet. These numbers really reflect a lot of things that took place since November 5th.
So the new consumer confidence numbers came out today. They were down. The Michigan numbers that were out a few weeks ago, they were also down. What message are consumers sending?
Well, it's the opposite of Riz. Okay, the consumer confidence is skibbity toilet, to quote my 10-year-old, and that's the whole ball game.
Straight to jail for you. Straight to jail.
Consumer confidence is the whole ball game. I would venture to say it's why Democrats lost, because Democrats were telling voters the economy is great, strong as hell, in fact, and consumers and voters knew differently. They did not believe it. They didn't feel it. So consumer confidence is, I think, an incredibly important metric of how the health of an administration, the health of the party, and how much leeway voters are willing to give Trump as he soldiers on through these dumb tariff wars.
Well, that's just the point. He's executing on a brand new political agenda and a brand new economic agenda that is a total turnaround from the previous administration, meaning spending less government money and having less sort of artificial spending in the economy, and really investing more in private sector employment. It takes some time. There is a lot of evidence out there that manufacturing is coming back. There is investment coming back to the United States. But the effects of that will not happen overnight. But transitioning the economy from one that is based on what the government can do for you versus what you can do for yourself in the private economy is going to be a transition. I would just point out right now, the right track, wrong track number in all the polling is better than it has been in years. So despite the consumer confidence numbers, people, there is evidence that the American people think maybe we are onto something here, and I'll feel better about the economy when it feels like my life isn't quite so expensive.
Give him some time. They're not going to give him forever, though. And the effects of the tariffs might be felt before the effects of some of this investment you're talking about.
And I think it's hard to be confident when there feels like there's a lot of chaos. In other words, there are two ways to get to the change. I don't agree with your characterization, but I do agree that there's change here. But you can be a steady hand with the change, or you can be up and down all over the place. Now there's a tariff, and now there's not. And I just think the everyday person just looks and says, it just looks unstable to me. And I think that's where the lack of confidence comes from. I agree with you. Some of these right track, wrong track numbers are encouraging because people just think, well, somebody's trying to do something. And that's good. But I think that this administration could have their cake and eat it too if they.
Even more says about these consumer confidence numbers. He says, the reason I'm concerned is that perception can become reality. If consumers feel bad, it can become a reality. People stop spending. That's going to affect the real economy. That's the worry. My policy advice for Republicans, stop talking about tariffs. and get the tax cuts done quickly.
Look, I think that's good advice. I was just reading a McKinsey report today, and when you look at the variations between age groups, what you find, according to that analysis, older individuals are more concerned, they're saving more money. But when they asked millennials said that they were looking forward to spending more money this year compared to last year. They're confident about their economic outlook and the future overall, which may hint towards why the president increased his numbers with younger voters writ large. So I think it depends. I think you definitely got to figure out tariffs. You can't turn them on, turn them off. But from a different perspective, being a younger person, a millennial myself, I feel excited about what's to come. There's a lot of economic opportunity, a lot of business opportunities, and I think a lot of younger people are also seeing that the same way.
I'm also a millennial, and I don't feel as excited as you, but...
You weren't in that McKinsey report? By the way, I spent all my days reading McKinsey.
Right. I think, though, I guess I wonder, you know, rewind the clock back 6 months, we were talking about the voter that would go to the grocery store and try and buy eggs and, you know, have to work a couple of jobs. I think their life is still the same today, right? And the question is, will they get to quit one of their jobs because their pay goes up based on these policies? I don't think they will, actually, because you guys don't want to raise the minimum wage. Prove me wrong. Well, let me finish. Are prices going down? Are people buying more homes? You know, the instability. We read a lot of polls. I just think that if you actually go to talk to people in middle America, those working class folks, their lives haven't improved yet, and they're waiting to see if they will. And the leash is not that long here.
Let's start with the economic context, because the timing of this conversation matters, and the juxtaposition is not incidental. Consumer confidence dropped to its lowest point since January 2021 during the height of a pandemic winter. The short-term business outlook hit a 12-year low, according to the Conference Board. Working-class Americans were watching grocery prices stay elevated, housing costs remain out of reach, and tariff policy swings so unpredictably that businesses could not plan around it. The administration's explanation that transitioning from a government-reliant economy to private sector manufacturing takes time might be defensible as a long-term argument if the people being asked to be patient were not the same people who voted for the administration on the explicit promise that prices would come down on day one. Shermichael Singleton cited a McKinsey report showing millennial optimism about future spending and business opportunities. That data point, whatever its merit in isolation, was doing an enormous amount of work in this discussion.
My head is about to fly off my shoulders and flip around the room and blow up on the set because you're talking about people who beat up cops. My father was a cop in the military. My favorite uncle, Milton, just retired from Memphis City Police Force. I'm a law enforcement kid. I can put up with a lot of stuff. Beating up cops is not one of them, period. And so you're now saying that these are patriots who deserve reparations. The cops that got beat up might deserve reparations. The lawmakers who got scared half to death might deserve reparations. I don't know, African Americans have been mistreated for 40 years might at least get a study on reparations. But this is an insult to anybody who believes in law and order in this country.
I want to talk to the black folks who voted for Donald Trump and they were mad because Kamala Harris said she wouldn't do reparations, or Joe Biden said, this is your president. Reparations for January 6th rioters.
Scott, you've been really clear on your disavowal of what happened on January 6th. I want to hear what you have to say about what Trump just said.
Yeah, I'm not interested in reparations for this. I mean, I think there are procedures in place if someone feels like they were improperly dealt with in the criminal justice system. You can sue, you know, and go through the civil system. But I don't think this is a policy that should be pursued. I mean, look, the truth is, a lot of these people, and some committed violent acts and some didn't, but they all got pardoned. So they all already got something very valuable.
Right.
Freedom.
Millennials being optimistic about future opportunity is not the same thing as working class Americans currently being able to afford their grocery bills. Optimism about the future and material hardship in the present can coexist, and do for millions of people whose daily economic reality is not reflected in a McKinsey survey about spending sentiment. Then came the Trump Newsmax clip, and this is where the panel stopped being an economic discussion and became something else entirely. Trump was asked directly whether there was any internal discussion about a compensation fund for January 6th rioters who lost income or business opportunities. His answer was yes. People in government talk about it. They view them as patriots. They were treated very unfairly. He did not make a policy announcement, but he did not decline to answer either. He confirmed that the conversation is happening inside his administration about compensating the same people he pardoned, the same people he publicly calls American heroes, the same people whose attack on the Capitol he has spent years reframing as a peaceful protest that got out of hand. Scott Jennings staked out his position carefully and revealingly. He said he opposes reparations for January 6th rioters. He noted that they already received pardons. He argued that Republicans on Capitol Hill want to focus on economic issues rather than compensation funds. That is the most coherent conservative response available. And it still cannot escape the question Bakari Sellers asked. Because the question was not whether Jennings personally supports the fund. The question was what it means that the President of the United States is confirming that his administration is discussing it. Sellers delivered the argument that made this version of the panel worth revisiting in its own right. His point was surgical. The same political movement that has spent years blocking, dismissing, and mocking any conversation about reparations for Black Americans, for centuries of documented, legally enforced, economically devastating racial injustice, is now openly discussing financial compensation for the people who attacked the Capitol, assaulted police officers on camera, and attempted to prevent the certification of a democratic election. The contrast is not rhetorical. It is documented. The United States government has never passed a reparations bill for slavery. It has never funded a formal study of reparations for Jim Crow. Bills proposing such a study have died in committee repeatedly. And here is the Trump administration, musing about a compensation fund for insurrectionists who already received pardons. The principle that government-caused harm deserves financial remedy is apparently available. The question of whose harm qualifies is where the consistency ends. Singleton's attempt to frame Trump's remarks as simply answering an open-ended question without policy commitment was the most obvious deflection on the panel. Trump has been talking about January 6 participants as treated unfairly patriots for years. He has issued blanket pardons. He has called for investigations into the prosecutors who charged them. The suggestion that confirming an internal administration discussion about a compensation fund is casual musing rather than a policy signal requires ignoring everything that preceded it. It was not musing. It was consistent with a pattern that has been building since January 20th.
For this, I don't think.
I think it was Greg Kelly.
I don't think. I don't think Republicans, John, on Capitol Hill want to focus on this. I mean, you Ashley raised some good points about the cost of living. You raised good points about access to affordable housing. What goods have gone down, what goods have not gone down. We have a housing shortage. That is something I think the administration could really, really focus on, particularly for younger people. We can focus a little bit more on working with businesses, manufacturers to figure out how do you lower costs writ large. Maybe you incentivize them through some type of tax mechanisms. These are the things we should be focused on, John. I'm not necessarily certain that this is it.
I'm not sure any of those words were in the answer that the President of the United States gave Greg Kelly right
Well,
there.
I just gave him a
It was a very
platter.
Trumpian answer, I should say. He said, well, there's talk about it. There's talk about it. A lot of people in the government
I didn't hear a
now.
commitment to it.
No.
I mean, he got asked a question, and his MO is to sometimes indulge the question, muse a little bit about it. I didn't hear anything definitive there, and my hope would be that
But there's a much different way to
definitive.
answer that question, which would be,
No. No.
all right, thank you all for that.
What this version of the panel clarified, more sharply than earlier visits, is the principle being revealed through the contrast. The Republican Party's position on reparations has always been that the government cannot and should not compensate people for historical wrongs. That the harms were real, but the mechanism of direct financial compensation is impractical, divisive, and sets a precedent the government cannot manage. That position has been stated consistently for decades across multiple administrations and multiple congressional sessions. And now the same party is discussing, openly from the White House, financial compensation for people who committed documented crimes, were convicted by juries, received presidential pardons, and are publicly celebrated as heroes. The principle was never the problem. The recipients were always the issue. Bakari Sellers said it without flinching. And the silence that followed from the conservative panelists was more informative than anything they said in response. Consumer confidence is at a 12-year low. Working Americans cannot afford their grocery bills. And the administration is musing about paying the people who beat Capitol Police officers while the families of those officers wait for a phone call that has never come. The accounting of who matters in this political moment is being written in real time. The entries are not subtle. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the reparations contrast Bakari Sellers drew will ever receive the mainstream political attention it deserves? And what is the timing? Consumer confidence collapse alongside insurrectionist compensation discussions. Tell you about this administration's actual priorities. Subscribe. We will keep connecting the dots that the deflections are designed to keep separate.